Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I'm joined by a new voice on the show. I'm joined by the new broadcaster for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, Luke Moehle. How's it going, man?
Greg, I'm impressed. You didn't ask before, Moehle. I'm impressed. I've never had anybody get my last name right. It doesn't make any sense. But I'm Luke, new to Myrtle Beach here with the Pelicans, and we're off and running this season. Super excited to be here.
Well, it's Luke Moehle, different spelling than Tyler Mahle, the starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers, but same pronunciation, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then there is also a Luke Moehle spelled different that has been a journeyman across baseball. And actually, I'm from Kansas City, and the last I saw of Luke Moehle, the catcher, he was in Omaha with the Storm Chasers during spring training. Some of my friends, tuning into Royals games, and he was part of big league camp. And so I got plenty of texts checking in, just making sure I didn't make the switch back over to the diamond on the playing side of things. And I can confirm I'm old and washed, no longer doing that.
You're not taking the field anymore, huh?
No. They let me talk about it, but they don't let me baseball anymore.
That's as close as you can get to the diamond. So,
that's right.
All right, man. Today this is our first episode of the season dedicated to one of the affiliates, right? We typically do that throughout the season, where every once in a while we'll get one of you broadcasters on and we'll talk about the affiliate that you're broadcasting for. And so in the past couple of years, I've liked to start off our first affiliate specific episode with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, because the Pelicans, there's so many, with it being the single A affiliate, the first full season affiliate these players hit. A lot of times I like to kind of introduce some of these players that people out there listening may not know anything about, versus at the Iowa Cubs, like they have 6 top 100 prospects that we've followed for the past 4 years. Like we're very familiar with those guys, not as familiar with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans players. And so we're going to get into, I don't know, a dozen, 10, 12 names or so on this episode, and we'll dig into those guys. But before we get started on those guys, I always like to let the new voice on the show kind of introduce himself. And we've had plenty of broadcasters. We've had Alex Cohen and Jason Kempf up in AAA. We've had BK. We've had Mick Gillespie. We've had Max Toma when he was with the South Bend Cubs, and Sam Wiederhaft here before you, Luke. But this is your first time on, so I guess give a little bit of background on you and how you ended up in this gig with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. Where were you at before, and how'd you get here?
Yeah, so Luke Moehle. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Went to the University of Missouri. Was part of the baseball program there for a couple of seasons. Ended up kind of just being a bullpen catcher and seeing the game from that side of things at the college level. And then hopped into professional baseball on the media relations side. Always knew that I wanted to be behind the microphone, but got my foot in the door with the Kansas City Royals at the big league level. Doing media relations stuff with them, had an awesome time, and then was able to make the switch back to being behind the microphone last year in Frisco as their assistant broadcast and media relations guy with a former Myrtle Beach broadcaster in Zach Bigley, who is awesome. He's the guy and deserves a spot at the big league level. So spent last year in the Rangers organization in Frisco, which Frisco is actually the sister club under the same ownership as the Pelicans. So that was kind of how this transition happened from me going to Frisco and then here in Myrtle Beach, and super blessed to be here and happy to be talking about some of our guys.
Hell yeah. I when you were with Frisco, were there multiple people in the booth, or were you the guy? And I guess with that, what's it like? I know that it's weird in the minor leagues a lot of times when you have guys that are solo in the booth, and you're solo most of the time, if not all the time, during Myrtle Beach. What's that like in Myrtle? Was that the case for you in Frisco?
In Frisco, I was paired with Zach Bigley,
Okay.
because I was his assistant, and so we just kind of alternate, going color to play-by-play. And then, here in Myrtle, been solo to this point. We do have some appearances that come up throughout the year, so we'll definitely be joined by some people in the booth, but mostly solo here. And I'm kind of open to whatever. I enjoy working with someone else. Just it's fun to have some banter back and forth, and for fans to hear different opinions on different things, and can spark. One of my favorite things to do in the booth is do some trivia. So that was one of our standout things last year, was Zach and I going back and forth with some trivia. I don't exactly have anybody right now to participate in trivia, unless, Greg, if you're listening along and I can pop some trivia, you can always tweet at me or tweet at the Pelicans account. So that sort of thing, love to do. But yes, flying solo right now to start off the year in Myrtle Beach.
Dude, it's so like I feel like it's so important to be in addition to like knowing baseball and being able to call play by play there. If you're solo, I feel like you have to be such a good storyteller in the booth, right? Like you're painting a picture of the game, but also like it's your voice. So you gotta have the play by play element. You gotta have the analysis element as well. But like you're on however many times, dozens and dozens of times throughout the season with these same people listening on a daily basis on radio or on MILB TV. And like, you got to be able to tell a story a little bit, which is kind of cool. It's one of my favorite things about baseball, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. The story side of things, and that's kind of the fun part at this level, being at the single A level. As you mentioned, kind of open up the show. People don't know all of these guys. There's some names that were high draft picks, the top 30 prospect guys that people that really follow along closely entering the year, they know some of those stories. But there's
Nerds,
other
you can
guys
say
that are
it.
just clueless.
It's nerds. You can say it. You can say that it's nerds.
The baseball nerds like
Yeah.
me. So, and I'm going to assume just like you, Greg. But yeah, so the fun part about that is, I can kind of find a story just in talking with some guys at batting practice or whatever, and tell that story, and then it goes up the chain, and BK, in Double A, Triple A, then to the big leagues, it goes all the way up the chain, and guys can ask a little bit more, doing their journalistic duties, just asking a little bit more deeper, and then by the time it gets to the very top, that story that started here in Single A has made it, on the air at Marquee at the big league level, and it's way more in depth than when I started it. But it's kind of fun in that manner to find those stories, for the first time.
You, I read somewhere that you played, or maybe you had said during your introduction, once you got hired with the Pelicans, that you played with Christian Franklin and with somebody else in the organization, right?
Ivan Brennauer. So
Ivan Brennauer, yeah.
Those two played in the same summer ball high school league
Okay.
that I did, and we played on the same team. And Ivan is a little bit younger, so I technically never took the diamond with Ivan, but he was around doing some catching things inside the organization. So we got to know each other at a decent level. And then Christian was my age, so Christian and I got to play together. And those are two guys that can hit the cover off of baseball.
Dude, Ivan Brennauer was a catcher back in high school.
He did some catching work, and then he kind of grew out of behind the plate.
Yeah,
he can do it all. That guy is versatile. And now look at that frame. He's going to send some balls out of the yard.
Yeah, I was gonna say we won't cover Ivan Brennauer today. Obviously, with him being up in South Bend. What do you got on Ivan? Haven't seen him when he was younger. I mean, he, besides just tearing the cover off the ball, I guess is that his thing?
He's a student of the game. He understands the game at a deeper level than most. And our organization, it's Building Champions is the name of the organization in Kansas City, and very competitive baseball, but a real emphasis on understanding the game at a deeper level during the winter. When we couldn't be out doing everything, we'd have indoor BP, live pens, that sort of thing going on. But the biggest thing that really stood out during my time there was we do winter classes, and we would have people come in, and you better have your notebook and a pen. I'm sure I have notebooks full of things from years past.
That's so cool.
Just dedicated to those. But just really cool names in baseball. Rusty Kuntz was one of them. A longtime outfield coach, base running specialist with the Royals, and I think now he's in the Royals front office doing something specific, kind of an advisor type of role, but just soaking in that sort of information. So Ivan understands the game at a deeper level, and if you ever pick his brain about the game of baseball, he's going to find something that you probably haven't heard before.
That's cool. What you got on Christian Franklin? Because I had Christian on the show this past off season. Like, awesome dude, awesome guy. It was cool listening to Christian. And I reference, I mean, people listening to this episode are probably sick and tired of me talking about this interview with Christian Franklin. But like, my takeaway from him was just how he went about like learning how to play. I mean, I guess similar to what you were describing with Ivan Brennauer, right? It's there's a mental side to the game that Christian Franklin really like seems to understand, because he's a freak talent wise physically. But like, to be a Major League Baseball player, you got to be a triple A player, to be a double A player. You got to be different in your head while you're playing the game too.
Yeah, really cerebral player on the diamond. If he can find an edge, he's gonna find it, and then he's gonna take advantage of it. Whether that's on the base paths, whether that's at the plate, whatever it might be. And it's been really fun to watch him, develop at Arkansas, had a really good career there, then finds himself in the Cubs organization. And just the adjustments over the past couple of years for him, trying to find that power swing again. And I think they made an adjustment with his load, kind of a toe tap sort of thing. And it's paid dividends. He's starting to hit the cover off the ball like we're used to seeing. And a guy that definitely could find himself roaming the friendly confines of Wrigley Field here soon.
For sure. All right, enough of the Midwest baseball talk. I mean, I was telling you before we started recording, I'm sitting here in a house that's super, super hot because I'm in the Midwest and I refuse to turn on the air condition. So if you guys are watching on YouTube and you see me sweating, that's why. I don't think it's quite as hot as it probably is in Myrtle Beach for you, Luke. But let's talk about the Pelicans, right? I mean, because this is a super young team. We were super excited to see what the Myrtle Beach Pelicans were about entering the season because we knew what the Cubs system looked like at the highest level. We saw the top 100 prospects in Iowa. We knew what to expect from those guys. You looked at the rosters in Tennessee and South Bend, and it kind of left a little bit to be desired in terms of the top end talent at those levels. Obviously, still interesting rosters, but Myrtle Beach was the roster that all of us looked at, and we were like, okay, we're looking for breakouts in this organization. We're looking for breakout prospects that kind of enter the top 10 in the Cubs farm system, or not necessarily reaching top 100s yet, but introducing themselves to Cubs fans that aren't necessarily Cubs prospect fans. And so there's a lot of dudes on this roster that can do that this year and have started to do that a little bit. But let's talk about the pitchers first, because there's a few names that I specifically want to hit on. I know that there's a lot of the draft picks from last year that we'll hit on here a little bit, but the first guy we got to start off with is Nazier Mulé, right? Because I think he's a guy that's caught people's eyes from the beginning. From once he was drafted as a two-way guy. Obviously, he had a Tommy John surgery, ditched hitting, is now just a pitcher. Really struggled last year quite a bit. This year, he's looked 10 times better, in my opinion, than he did last year.
Yeah, and you talk about, kind of catching the eye, being drafted, that sort of thing. A guy that was ranked as the number 4 draft eligible prospect by like Perfect Game or something in his class. Like, this is a guy that could play both sides if he really wanted to, but obviously the arm is very, very live. He broke big headlines as a 16-year-old hitting triple digits, and that's kind of where people discovered Nazier Mulé. And
must be nice.
He's been fantastic. Obviously an electric fastball. And he commands the zone really well. And that's the big thing coming into this year. You look at last year's numbers and he showed flashes. Nobody really hit him hard, but it was the walk numbers that were a little bit concerning. And this year it's been attack the zone. And his last outing, he came out for the 5th, was really good. And then he came out trying to go through 6 innings. But the Pelicans offense put up 10 runs in a 15 batter bottom of the 5th. And so he came back out, and I think he ended up walking 2 or 3 in that frame. So if you look at the numbers now, it's like, oh, his last outing, he had 5 walks or whatever it was. But it wasn't a true 5 walks.
Yeah.
He's been really, really good to start the year. He's been super efficient. It's not a lot of wasted pitches. He attacks early, gets ahead, and then he goes to the put-away pitches. And guys have not been able to square him up. Love being around Mulé. I don't know how much longer he's going to be here. Obviously I have no inside information to that, but if he keeps pitching the way that he is right now, we're going to see him climb the ranks pretty fast.
Yeah, Brian and I talked on the preview episodes in April, or sorry, in March. We did those about Mulé being a guy that might start off the year in South Bend. And so the fact that he was sent back to Myrtle Beach, he's kind of doing exactly what you would hoped he did in a return back to that level, right? 2.4 ERA, whip is at an even 1. He's striking out 27% of the batters he faces. You mentioned the walk rate, 12.5, which is higher than you'd like, but also better than last year. For me, with Nazier, is what stood out the most is that he's getting more swings and misses this year. It's a slider, looks a lot better than it did last year. I think part of that is last year, you're right, he was just all over the place. Lots of didn't throw many strikes. And so when he was coming in the zone, it was getting hit quite a bit. And this year, the swing and miss is up quite a bit. He's got a 13% swinging strike rate, which is decent. It's above average for the Cubs system this year. And that's what stood out the most is like, if he can keep getting those swings and misses on sliders out of the zone, if he can keep running the fastball up in the zone on right-handed hitters especially, then that's going to be super productive for him in Myrtle Beach for sure, and even when he gets up to South Bend.
Yeah, it's kind of, he understands the game as a hitter, obviously, not as much at the pro level, but understanding what guys are looking for goes a long way for him. What you've been able to see a little bit of this year is setting up the next pitch. Whether that's change the eye line, go elevated with the fastball, and then go outside with the slider. And his sequencing has been really tough to predict. And I think that's boded really well for him. You mentioned the swing and miss stuff. It's only going to get better for him as he learns. He's growing into a true pitcher now. Obviously, he had the electric arm with the fastball in the high 90s. He's got good secondary pitches, but now really understanding the fundamentals of how to attack each and every batter. And as he gets even better at that, I think the numbers are going to go astronomical.
And he's throwing more pitches this year. He got up to 91 pitches, I think, in his last outing, which is that does not happen. Like that's worth a discussion for a different podcast episode, is the number of pitches that the Cubs front office is allowing prospects to throw in their outings this year. I've started diving into that a little bit. They're throwing more, essentially. They're throwing more pitches per start this year than they did last year in the early going. And so to see Mulé get up to 91 pitches, this is his first year, really. Like, last year was the return from Tommy John. And so you're going to be limited in terms of how many innings you're throwing, how many pitches you're throwing, things like that. Like, this is like full go. Like, you're a pitcher now. Go out there and get after it, which is super fun to watch.
Yeah, and I got the chance to talk to Naz after that start, the following day, I guess.
Yeah.
Ran into him in the clubhouse. We started kind of chatting, and I asked how the arm felt, and he said he felt really, really good. So that's a great sign, for a guy that has had an arm injury in the past, which has become a very, very common thing for a lot of arms. So not rare to see, Tommy John or any sort of surgery specifically for pitchers. But said he was feeling really, really good. So, when a guy throws 91 pitches and comes in the next day feeling like he could go again, that's usually a pretty good sign that the arm's doing well.
I'll leave the Naz Mulé talk here. He's thrown 15 innings. The opponent's slash line against him this season, opponents are hitting 130 for a batting average. They've got an OBP of 266. They've got a slug of 167. So that's an opposing OPS of 432 this season. Like that's not sustainable. I mean, like either it does sustain at this level, and he's not, like you said, he's not going to be there much longer, or it's got to come up at some point, because that's stupid low in terms of opponent batting average. So, all right, let's talk about another pitcher that I really like what I've seen from him this year. The numbers aren't quite there as good as Mulé is, but the stuff is tremendous. JP Wheats, and for me, the fastball slider combo is like what it's all about.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And a funny story, it's a good transition from point A to point B with Mulé and Wheat. Every year here in Myrtle Beach, we do a meet the team party. And it's, open for fans. They get to ask questions. I kind of do an introduction of the coaching staff and then each player individually, and then open the floor up for questions. And we had a young fan in attendance, and he asked the question. He goes, "Who throws the hardest?" And in my mind, I haven't seen these guys throw. I've done minimal research at this point on them. We had just gotten the roster for opening day. And so I went to Naz and was like, I assume that would be you, knowing the story of him throwing 100 at 16 years old. And JP was sitting to his left, and he pointed and he goes, "Nah, this guy over here." And they went back and forth, being like, "No, it's actually him. No, it's him." So after it settled, we were like, okay, both of them have hit 100. After it settled, I asked them individually, and JP was finally like, technically it is me. I got him a little bit. But JP is a massive personality. He's a massive human being. He's 6'6", big frame, projectable. Fastball has lived in the upper 90s. It's all about control for him. If he throws strikes, they do not hit him. It's hard to square up JP Wheat. He just coming off of his last start was really, really good. Worked himself into a little bit of a jam. I think it was third or fourth inning where he issued 3 walks. He ended up, I believe, with 5 on the outing. But he set a career high with 5 innings pitched and 6 punch outs because he was able to, find a way to get out of those jams. The first 2 batters of that start, it was a single and then a double that produced a run. They didn't pick up a hit against him through the remaining 5 innings. So the first 2 batters produced a run. No one else picked up a hit. He issued some of those walks. But, it was like when you got into a jam with him, he would anchor down and, pick up a ground ball double play or pick up a couple big strikeouts. And JP's got really, really good stuff. The more and more that he lives in the zone, the better off he's going to be.
Yeah, I look at JP Wheaton. Obviously, this is his first taste. Well, first like real taste of action in Myrtle Beach, and obviously the Cubs are going to give him a chance to keep starting, and that's the appropriate way to go about it with JP Wheat as he gets accustomed to the mound in full season ball and keeps coming up through the system. He's going to get every opportunity to start, but I also view JP Wheat as a guy that might look a little bit like Porter Hodge in the future, where Porter Hodge was a reliever coming up to the Cubs farm system, he was a starter in the Cubs farm system as he was coming up and had the really good fastball and a really good slider like JP Wheat does. Now the ways in which they're good are different. Like JP just throws heats, and Porter Hodge has that cut ride fastball that's a little bit different, but like still two really good offerings and not really like still trying to develop a third good like put away pitch or third offering. And so I could see a situation with JP Wheat where he makes it up to South Bend, he's still starting, and the Cubs are like, man, like these two pitches are too good to wait to see if he finds the zone a little bit more. Like let's take those two pitches and shoot him up to the organization, shoot him up to Tennessee into Knoxville and Iowa, see if he can be a reliever there and get him up to Chicago sooner rather than later. And that's one of those strategies where like I've been really happy the Cubs have looked to do that in recent years with some pitchers, because it's one of those things where like if we know this guy can fill a role in Chicago in let's say 2 or 3 years with JP Wheat, right? Then let's get him to Chicago and let him show off those pitches, getting big league outs, as opposed to staying in Tennessee or staying in Double-A or staying in High A and figuring out how to be a starting pitcher. Just go work, man. Like just go let it fly in the majors,
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I do love the fact that, a lot of organizations now, try these guys out as starters, even knowing that, and this isn't necessarily the case with JP, but knowing that might project better in a bullpen type of role, but especially at the lower levels in the minor leagues, give them as much action, give them 5 days rest, get them in pitching every 5 days or 6 days really here in the minor leagues. And, get that start, try to go 4 or 5 innings, get more and more experience, working through situations. And you can learn so much more as an organization from that versus a guy coming out of the pen. And so for JP, it'll be really interesting to see how he develops, but I could definitely see him coming into the upper levels of the minor leagues or into Chicago, as a relief arm.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point where it's like, hey, like as a starter, the Cubs with JP Wheat specifically or other pitchers, the Cubs may not view him in any way, shape, or form as a starting pitcher in the major leagues. Like they may already be reserved to the fact that he's not going to be a starting pitcher there. But in the lower levels of the minors, the way he can rack up some innings, rack up some experience is through that starting rotation strategy. And so that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but that could be something that they're doing with JP Wheat here. So there's 3 specific names I want to talk about as far as guys that were drafted last year, and I'll let you chime in with additional guys after. But Brooks Caple, Brayden Risedorph, and Evan Aschenbeck are 3 guys I want to talk about. Let's start with Evan Aschenbeck because he's no longer in Myrtle Beach, but you got to see him for his first few outings of the year. He's up in South Bend, got the quick call up to South Bend, which was well deserved. We talked about him after his first outing in Myrtle Beach on the show. He was too damn good to be pitching in Myrtle Beach in single A.
The first look that we got at Evan was on the road in Charleston, lefty, a little bit about him coming, if you follow college baseball at all, saw him be big part of the bullpen in prime situations in relief for the Aggies, making that run and then ultimately falling to Tennessee in the College World Series final. So I knew a little bit about him coming in, but a really interesting story for him is he started at Blinn College, was not super heavily recruited out of high school, was kind of on the radar for like Sam Houston, that sort of thing. And then when COVID happened, everyone closed their doors. So they were like, we don't know what's happening here at the college level. So he went into Blinn. He was a starter at Blinn. And then transferred into Texas A&M, and I got to ask him kind of what his thought process was going to A&M. Did he want to be a starter? Did he want to come out of the pen? And he said, I just wanted to pitch. He's a guy that loves the art of pitching. He understands it at a deep level. And he said, if there was a big moment last year at A&M, I was going to be on the mound, and I wanted that situation. You know, he craves the situations in which he has to come in and with runners in scoring position, pick up 2-3 outs to preserve a lead. And that first look at him as a starter, it was like, is this for real? And then, the second start was maybe even more impressive, or I guess it wasn't a start. He was slated to start, and then there was rain in the forecast. We had a delayed start to the game. So they used kind of an opener to see what would happen. And they used an opener. He came in, and it was much of the same. 5 innings, scoreless, didn't allow a run in his 3 outings here in Myrtle Beach. He allowed, I think, 1 unearned run maybe, but didn't allow an earned run. He was fantastic. That is a guy that almost seems plug-and-play ready at the big league level. The first look at it was like, okay, this is a future big leaguer. Commands the zone well, doesn't walk guys, gets his strikeouts. He was impressive, that's for sure.
Blinn College, was that Cam Newton where he went to JUCO?
It might have been. I didn't even think of that.
I think it was.
That might have been. That sounds
where like he was at Florida and then ended up transferring and going. He had to go JUCO before coming to Auburn.
It very well could have been.
Yeah, no overlap there between Evan Aschenbeck and Cam Newton, obviously. But no, man, Evan Aschenbeck, he's kind of a Jordan Wicks starter pack a little bit, where like bulldog on the mound, like he's gonna bat. I mean, he hasn't given up runs this year, so like he hasn't really had to battle through much. But like that vibe, bro, if he gives up a few runs early, like he's gonna continue to battle through a few extra innings that you didn't expect him to. The stuff is the fastball is not great. Like I don't look at the fastball. I'm like, oh, 90s. Like it's not a JP Wheat fastball. It's not a Nazier Mulé fastball. But the get outs ability is through the roof for Evan Aschenbeck.
Yeah, and that's the key. You can throw 120 miles an hour, but if you can't locate it, if you can't get outs, then what use is that? And so we talk about a couple of flamethrowers who have the great stuff. Evan Aschenbeck on paper doesn't look like he's going to be the greatest pitcher of all time, but the way he composes himself on the mound, the way he goes about his business, and he just flat out gets outs. He was impressive to watch.
I was talking about the insane opponent OPS for Nazier Mulé. Well, Evan Aschenbeck this season, opponent OPS is 378. That's an OPS, not a batting average, not an OBP. That's an OPS, which is insane. So he's been really good. Excited to watch him continue to do his thing in South Bend. I kind of expect him to spend most of the season in South Bend. He may get a cup of coffee in Double-A Knoxville to end the season. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but especially because he's an advanced like college arm that was drafted. But the majority of this season, I expect him to be in South Bend, and that's perfectly fine for Evan Aschenbeck. So Brooks Caple is a guy that I know. I reached out to Greg Zumack and Brian Smith, who helped me host this show, and I said, hey, what pitchers, I guess, what players should I talk to Luke about? And Brian said, let's get some thoughts on Brooks Caple, because he likes what he's seen from Brooks so far this season, which has been pretty strong over the course of the season in the early going.
Yeah, and Brooks just has the makings to me of a guy that's going to fly under the radar for forever until finally everyone looks and they're like, why is this guy not being talked about? He started at Stephen F. Austin and primarily came out of the bullpen there. Then he transferred to Lamar and in 2023 was really, really good. And then 2024, he was injury plagued. I think it was a 9th round selection by the Cubs last year. A guy that, again, just gets outs. He's been impressive over the course of the year. He's got his head on straight. He's got his priorities incorrect. His preparation for each outing is really impressive. The way that especially not coming from a big school, your cream of the crop type of schools, a guy that has kind of flown under the radar, as we were talking about, but he gets outs. He's been really impressive. He's been one of those starters that has impressed me. Obviously Evan Aschenbeck was the headliner. Nas has been really, really good with the electric stuff, JP stuff, but Brooks doesn't have that, in my opinion, the one pitch that's like, whoa, but he understands how to pitch, kind of like we've talked about. And He gets outs. I'm very impressed by him. It's going to be really interesting to see how he develops.
I could see him just for the next few months or so, just logging 5-inning starts, game in and game out for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, and being that like anchor of the rotation, where that has Naz or has JP that really are higher upside guys long term and also this season. And JP is going to have a start where he goes 6 innings with 11 strikeouts, and that's going to like wow you. But Brooks Caple might be a guy that just gets 5 innings, one or two runs per outing, and just gets the job done. The results, like you said, this year have been really good: 2.57 ERA, 1.29 WHIP. Really strong numbers as far as that goes. A lot of ground balls from Brooks Caple so far. 57% ground ball rate is what I have here as far as Baseball Reference says. Really good numbers across the board there. Under the hood, a little bit less sexy, right? Like you said, there's just less wow factor there. The swing strike rate is not nearly as high as some of these other guys, but obviously still only 14 innings pitched so far for Brooks Caple. So that I think both numbers have a chance to level themselves out. Right? I think that the ERA and the traditional stats are going to raise up a little bit. The swing strike rate, the CSW, like the Ks minus walks, like those numbers are going to get better as the season wears on a little bit too. So just a fun, I think it's going to be a really fun guy to watch this season and in the future. The Cubs have had a lot of experience with taking good college pitchers and making them into good depth at the major league level. I look at Brandon Birdsell and Connor Nolan that are in AAA Iowa. Obviously, Birdie's still working his way back from injury, but like those are two guys that are kind of like the blueprint for what, or Will Sanders from last year, even like this year, even like there's college pitchers that Brooks Caple and Evan Aschenbeck and Hayden Frank and guys like that have a guide going into the rest of this season and next season, the season after that, which is super, super fun. So the last guy I did want to mention here is Brayden Risedorph, who he's been good mostly out of the bullpen, right? I think all of his outings have been out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and they've been back end most of the time. Kind of that 8th inning has been the sweet spot for him, and he has been really impressive. One of those guys that again kind of flies under the radar. He's not going to pop into any list of top 30 prospects or anything like that, but he's dependable. He comes in. He's not going to do anything crazy. We're yet to see him, lose control or leave something right over the heart of the plate. He lives on the corners in the bottom of the zone. He'll occasionally put the fastball up top, kind of change eye level like we talked about, but really impressive. He's again pitches to a lot of contact, but it's been consistent with like 2-3 strikeouts per outing in those 2-3 innings. And it's all of it is getting ahead early. It's first pitch strikes, but as a hitter, you go to the plate and you're thinking, okay, that first one's going to be the best thing that I see. Maybe it's not always a first pitch fastball. He pitches backwards. He flips it around a little bit, and he makes the most of his pitches, putting them in tough spots to hit, living, like we said, at the bottom of the zone, painting the black on the edges. He's been really fun to watch.
Bear with me for listeners out there as I rattle off some stats because they're ridiculous. He's faced 35 batters this season. He's given up 0 extra base hits, has Brayden Risedorph. He hasn't given up a run so far. While he has been pitching to contact, getting a lot of ground balls, 56% rates. He's also been striking guys out, 40% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate. Those are good numbers. The swinging strike rate is 18% for Brayden Risedorph. The best of the bunch in terms of that OPS against number at 205 OPS against. So like, I typically try my best not to just sit here and rattling off numbers on podcasts, but they're too good not to do that. He's throwing 12 pitches per inning, which is a stupid low number, like by far the lowest in the organization so far this year.
He's just put hitters in bad situations. They find themselves immediately down 0-2, and then he's going to snap something on the edge of the bottom of the zone where it's, as a hitter, if you lay off of it, it's strike 3. If you swing at it, your best hope is to foul something off or you hit a squibber, and that's that soft contact rate. He stayed extremely efficient. We've reached a point now where when he comes into the ball game, it's almost like, all right, if we have the lead, we're going to win.
Yeah.
Or if it's a one-run game and we're on the wrong side of things, the offense is going to have a chance because he comes in, takes care of business. He's in, out. And like you said, the numbers are impressive, but it's nothing really flashy on the mound. Yeah. But he comes in and it's bang, 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 and the inning's gone just like that.
Do you think it makes the most sense to keep him in relief, or do you think that there's a chance that he converts over to being a starting pitcher? What's your thoughts on that?
he's been so impressive as a relief arm that to me, it's like that makes a lot of sense for him. It would be really interesting to see him in a starter situation because that would test that ability, to be that efficient. If he keeps those efficiency numbers up as a starter, we're going to see a 7-inning outing from Risdorf, and it's going to be like, why is this a thing? Like, how is this possible? But yeah, just extremely efficient, soft contact. The swing and miss has been good. I personally would say leave him as a bullpen arm. But that's something I'll have to report back to you and see from the starting perspective what his thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
A guy at Indiana that did a little of both, and he earned an opening day start last year. One of the kind of fun things is he has experience here in Myrtle Beach, not at Pelicans ballpark, but he got the opening day start for the Hoosiers last year against Duke, and that was here in Myrtle Beach at Coastal Carolina's ballpark. So kind of fun.
A Duke versus IU baseball matchup, not blue blood
hoops
basketball. IU is not really a blue blood, even if the fans listening to this podcast claim that they are. But it is kind of fun having another IU guy in the. I'm an Illini basketball fan, and so IU is awful to me. But I know there's a lot of IU fans that are Chicago Cubs fans that are surely listening to this. So I know Kyle Schwarber had a lot of success with the Cubs, and he was an IU guy that people kind of flock to. So Brayden Risedorph is a guy to kind of keep your eye on moving forward. So any other pitchers that you wanted to kind of specifically call out before we move over to some of these hitters?
I think kind of touched on the big ones. There's certain guys. It's been interesting to see the difference in starting versus relieving for Kevin Valdez, a guy that didn't pitch last year because of surgery. So it's been really interesting seeing him come back. And I did a breakdown the other day of kind of him as a starter versus him as a reliever, and his numbers as a starter are pretty solid. And then, coming out of the pen to start the year, he struggled a little bit, flipped over to being a starter, and he had one bad inning in his last outing. But other than that, was really consistent. So it's going to be interesting to see Valdez develop. This is a bullpen that's been pretty good for the Pelicans this year. Overall, as a staff, it's been really impressive to see how minimal hard contact we've seen over the course of the year. They're towards the bottom of the league in home runs allowed. Don't know the exact number now, but I think they've given up as a staff 2 home runs only once this year. So it's been minimal damage on hard contact rates. But yeah, the staff has been really good. They're a good group. They're a big personality type of group, and JP Wheat kind of headlines that. He's been really fun.
The lack of home runs get used to that over there in Myrtle Beach, man. It's it is crazy, especially to right field. Right field home runs just don't seem to, or hits don't seem to carry at all out to right field, which makes them even more impressive and more majestic when they actually get out.
I know one of the guys that you're wanting to talk about at one point. We don't have to go directly into it. Is Owen Ayers, and Owen hit one out to right the other night, and it came off the bat. It was 108.4 or something like that, and it just barely scraped over the wall. It was like that ball you knew off the bat was going to be gone, and I called it as such. And then right towards the end, I was like, "Uh-oh, I'm a little bit nervous here." It made me nervous. So that was my first encounter with a homer out to right at Pelicans ballpark, and the ball not flying as much as you figured it would.
It's crazy, man. Now, honestly, that's a good transition. I want to talk about Owen Ayers first. Obviously, catcher by trade, but really like athlete behind the plate. When we talked from the moment he was drafted to our preseason kind of preview of the team, I think that the word we keep using to describe Owen Ayers is athlete, because he looks really good when he's behind the plate. He looks really good when he's on the base paths. He looks fluid in the box. He's been really impressive this season. The numbers have been all right. I mean, I think that with a 243 batting average, his last game actually helped quite a bit, I believe. The overall season production.
He hit over 450 this week.
Yeah.
And, with an injury, the Pelicans are down to 2 catchers. He's been the primary guy. So it's kind of been 2 on, 1 off over the last 10 or so days. But he's been really impressive. Switch hitting catcher.
Yeah.
So he kind of does a little bit of everything. And he has a background at the college level. In high school, he was primarily a catcher. And then in college, not many people realized it, but he quietly went out to the outfield and put up numbers there. And in talking with him, he said that he felt like it was kind of a good thing, saved some innings. And so he's still perfecting the catching craft here at the professional level, but he's been really good behind the plate. He looks comfortable, and he said that he's added some weight. It was like 25 pounds or something from his last experience behind the dish to now. And he said it's helped his body feel a lot better, feels a lot stronger. And a guy that is a really interesting prospect because he does have the true backspin power from both sides of the plate. Gets a little bit more of that homer type power from the left side. But yeah, developing as a catcher, and he's been really impressive. And this week, something clicked for him. And it's going to be interesting to see how he rolls it over to this upcoming 6-game road trip.
Yeah, he's a little bit old for the level down in Myrtle Beach, but you're right in that, like, he's still learning, like relearning, I guess is maybe the proper phrase of it, how to catch. And so, like, from that perspective, like, we know catchers are on different schedules as other hitting prospects, unless you're Moises Ballesteros. But most catchers are on different schedules. And so I have like zero concern about him being an older guy for the level. Looks like he might be 3 years older than the average age of hitters in the Carolina League. So I don't really have any concern with that. OPS this season 835. He's not striking out hardly at all, which is kind of what I expected to see from him. And his approach to the plate kind of mimics that outcome of I'm not surprised that he's not striking out much, you know.
Yeah, and he's done a good job driving in runs. I think he's sitting at like 10 RBI or something like that. And it's good situational hitting from him right now. Not to stay too long on one specific guy, but another fun story with Owen is more ties to the Myrtle Beach area.
Okay.
His first workout with the Cubs before the draft rolled around was at Pelicans ballpark, and he was the only one, at least that he knew of, that ended up signing with the Cubs in any way, shape, or form. But just working his way back, like from, I think he was going from West Virginia back to like Florida or something like that, and just worked his way through here, stopped, had a workout with the Cubs. That's kind of the first interaction that he had with the Cubs organization. Said it went really well. And then obviously it was enough for them to take a flyer on him.
Yeah, I think that Owen Ayers is going to be one of those guys that fans are big fans of, that
Mm-hmm.
people who follow Cubs prospects are going to be huge fans of Owen Ayers as he comes up and continues through the organization. And so just kind of keep an eye on him. I think that he's always worth noting his production. Let's go over to there's when I talked at the top of this episode about guys that could potentially break out, I think that the first place we went to were some of the young international free agent signings that are now in Myrtle Beach. And that's Angel Cepeda, that's Jose Escobar, that's Alexey Lumpuy now. Let's talk about Angel Cepeda first, because he was kind of he was the most notable, I think, after he signed, and most people recognized his name more than anybody. And it's been fun to see him finally taking the field, manning shortstop quite a bit for the Pelicans. Numbers wise has been not great so far this year. Obviously, the batting average below 200, but getting his first taste of action in full season ball is never easy for a guy who's an international free agent signing. So, what have you liked from Angel Cepeda, and what's your kind of take on him?
Angel is an 80 grade human being. He is the youngest rostered player. He's 19 years old, and he's got his head on straight. Signed at 16. You hand a 16-year-old $1 million, doesn't always end great.
Yeah.
For him, like, this is a guy that has his priorities straight on and off the field. He's a fantastic person and an easy guy to root for. As you mentioned, kind of the numbers aren't jumping out at you right now, but when you really break it down and watch, he's gotten unlucky a bit at times. He got off to a really solid start. I think he hit in his first 6 games, and then it's been a little bit of a slump for him, but he's hitting the baseball hard. We've seen him all over the infield, primarily at shortstop, as you mentioned, but also at second. And then this week got his first taste at third base, and got to talk to him a little bit about that. And he was a little bit nervous for it, just because the words that he said to me is they call it a hot corner for a reason. And he said the last time that he had any action at third base was during big league camp. He was at third base and got some action when the Cubs were taking on the Royals. And he said that he made the play then, and he was flawless on this end, made a nice little sliding play off to his left at third base. Defensively, he's good. He's a first one in, last one out type of guy. one of the hardest working players that I've worked with, and I think he's going to find success. As you mentioned, the numbers not quite there yet, but they're going to come. He's very talented.
You know what I feel like doesn't get talked about enough is that I feel like we just kind of throw out there that a shortstop, he can move over to third base, and that's fine. Like if he can't man shortstop, he can go over to third base. And it's like those positions are so different. Like second base and shortstop, like up the middle, is all about players' range and being a good enough athlete to range up the middle or throw from deep in the hole, things like that. Third base is not about range; it's about reaction time, and those things are not. I mean, they're kind of related, right? Like you have to have good reaction time to get the good jump and have good range, but it's up the middle. It's more about like lateral agility, and third base. It's entirely about that reaction time, and like that's not an easy transition. And for a guy in Angel Cepeda who's been a shortstop his entire life and dabbled in second base as he signed with Valdez, who's still down in Arizona. Obviously, they bounce back and forth between second base and shortstop in the Dominican and in Arizona. But just saying, hey, like go play third base, like that takes a good baseball mind, a willing player, and someone who takes the coaching pretty well in order to do that.
Yeah, and he's a very coachable player. He's always the one looking for extra work defensively, extra work in the cage, whatever that might be. Like I said, easy guy to root for. And the more and more that I learn about him, the more and more that I talk with him, he's a story machine. There's all sorts of cool little things about him. Whether it's he's originally from the Dominican Republic, but grew up in New Jersey, then moved away from his family at 13 years old to go back to the DR, lived kind of with his grandma, and it was a baseball centric move. They felt it was best for him to go back to the Dominican Republic and grow there as a ball player. And obviously it's worked out for him. I'm really excited to see him over the course of the year, just because, those numbers, they're going to come back to or regress more to the mean. He's been a little bit unlucky. And I think he's going to end up having a really good year.
You know what's like? I feel like I obviously don't know for sure, but I feel like him having that experience both stateside and in the Dominican Republic before he even signed as a professional probably goes a long way in terms of him really like getting the lay of the land once he came up stateside after he signed, right? And also communicating constantly with players that are both from the United States and from Latin countries as well. Like I feel like that's got to play in his favor to a certain degree, outside of even like baseball specific on the field things.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of guys in the clubhouse that primarily speak Spanish, and he's fluent both sides. Yeah, and fluent enough to do fully English interviews, that sort of thing. Comfortable. He did some stuff with media, kind of when the roster was announced here, like local media things, and did a great job with that. And he's kind of been that medium between those two groups. And it's been fun to kind of see him teaching some guys English and then teaching his stateside born players some Spanish. It's been really cool. He's, like I said, I can't talk enough about how good of a person he is. Cubs fans, when he continues to progress, the more and more they learn about him, they're going to love this guy.
That's sweet. I love that. That's great. Let's go to someone that we're a little bit more familiar with. We watched Jose Escobar play last year in Myrtle Beach. Was pretty strong during his time in Myrtle Beach last year. Came in this year, got a really rough start to the first couple weeks of the year, and has turned it on a little bit more recently. He's still batting 179 this season, but he's walking a ton. Like he's walking 19% of his plate appearances. He's got 349 on base percentage, which obviously is above league average. Overall, the numbers aren't pretty this year, but watching him take it, he may be the most fun at bat that I watch with this Myrtle Beach Pelicans roster.
Yeah, the hitting coach here in Myrtle Beach, Roberto Vaz, refers to him as their mini Soto. Patient at the plate, doesn't chase a ton. As you mentioned, the game one of the year, he had a 4-hit night, including a homer. So he got off to a scorching start, and then it went down from there in terms of the offensive numbers. But he's a perfect guy to have in your lineup because he can hit. He hits well. He's only 5'10", but he hits for some power. But this week's a great example. Yesterday he had an RBI double. That was Sunday series finale. Had an RBI double. But entering that plate appearance, he was 0 for his last 11. but in that span had walked 7 times and been hit by a pitch. So it's just like he's one of those guys that when the bat isn't scorching hot and you're not getting the swings on the ball that you want to, he's just going to find a way to get on base.
Yeah. Second base, left field, where is he at long term?
Second base seems to be more projectable to me. He said he's more comfortable there, but he's one of those guys that, as we mentioned, just loves to hit. Yeah. And so I asked him, where are you more comfortable right now? And he said, second base, but I'll play outfield. I'll play wherever as long as it gets me into the lineup, because hitting is, where he is mentally at, is just at bat to at bat. Left field, he hasn't really looked too bad. There's been a couple of balls out there that, you would like to see probably caught, but they're not errors. It's just, getting that feel for reading the ball off the bat, that making that first step, the quick read. I think second base is probably more of a home for him, but that's not to say that out in left field he can't really settle in and become a plus defender at that position.
I've said it before on the show. I'll say it one more time. Jonathan Perlaza is, to me, the comp for Jose Escobar and how he projects over the next few years. So go check out Jonathan Perlaza's numbers in AAA for San Diego right now. And he's killing the ball last I saw, which is terrific. After that little stint playing overseas, he's back stateside playing for the Padres, and one of my all-time favorite Cubs prospects over the past, 5 to 10 years or so. So Jonathan Perlaza is the comp there for Jose Escobar. So let's talk a little bit about, we've gone 51 minutes now, and we haven't talked about who I think maybe the top prospect for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans in the Cubs organization. That's Cole Mathis, who is DHing the season, or DHing so far this season, obviously returning from arm surgery that he had last year. And so we're seeing a lot of him at DH, and he's had stretches where he's looked not as good, but overall, all in all, I think he's too good for that level in Myrtle Beach, probably.
Yeah, the highs have been there. He's entered, the other day, series finale against Kannapolis. He entered leading the league in extra base hits. Mm-hmm. He has 14 hits on the year, 10 of which have gone for extra bases, 7 doubles, 3 homers, both of which either lead or tied for the team lead. As well as second in the entire league. But yeah, ton of pop in that swing. Still waiting to see him defensively. Kind of an interesting situation, coming out of college at Charleston, two-way guy. Back in 2023, he led team in OPS and ERA. So a guy that can do it all, understands what pitchers want to do to a guy like him, how they're going to attack him. And I think that helps him a lot. Another guy that's just a fantastic human being, coming off that Tommy John surgery. So we're yet to see him defensively. But while he was in college, to save his arm, they moved him over to first base. Whereas in high school, he played third base primarily and then on the mound. So they moved him over to first base, where he spent his college career. Cubs on draft night in the second round last year said he's a third baseman. And he said that was the feedback that he got from all the teams that he talked to, was that they saw him as a third baseman because that arm is a plus tool for him. And so he's still adjusting. We've seen him doing defensive work, pregame, that sort of thing. And so it's still building. So it's going to be really interesting to see his first introduction back over to third base, what that looks like. But this is a guy that understands the game at a deep level and is quick to make adjustments.
What's the BP look like from Cole Mathis? Is it impressive? I'm thinking about, I'm watching him on a daily basis take at bats, and his presence in the bot, the way he stands, honestly, his stance and his load and everything doesn't look like this guy that's going to hit 30 home runs a year. It's a pretty modest looking stance and all that good stuff, but he does have really strong power. So what's the BP look like pregame for Cole Mathis?
It's loud. It's a different sound. He's got the sound off the bat that scouts will turn heads at, Yeah. He does a great job. In game, we've seen a little bit. For him, it's all about getting through the baseball. He has a tendency to kind of lag through a little bit. And if you look at the numbers, one of the most interesting numbers is, I think the other day I looked and it was 60% of his outs have come on infield fly balls. And most of them have been to the right side of the field. But when he gets through on the ball, it's loud contact right off the bat. And that's kind of a big reason why you're seeing, 75% of his hits going for extra bases. It's because when he's getting through on the ball, that's what they've been kind of working on in BP. it's tough to keep that ball in the ballpark, and it's going to find grass and roll a long way.
Yeah.
But his BP rounds are fun to watch. He is a guy that is going to play this game for a long time.
Probably the best hitter on Myrtle Beach in the early going is a guy who's been out with an injury the past week or so. That's Matt Hallback. And so far this season, he's put up really good numbers, 317 batting average, 866 OPS. Just really strong numbers across the board for Matt Hallback. What have you liked from him during his time on the field?
Yeah, experienced college hitter. Played 3 years at UCSD.
Yep.
And while he was there, hit the cover off the baseball. He was in the lineup a lot. So a very experienced college guy, not one of the guys that, came in, sat for a couple of years, and then saw action. I think he was a 10th round selection. Injury with him, nothing to be concerned about, just an ankle roll and on a freak play at first base. So he should be back, in the coming days. But Matt is a good dude. Another one of those guys that has loud BP sessions. It's a lot of backspin, gap-to-gap line drives. I think working on pull side stuff with him is going to be an interesting development because I think there's some more power in there to unlock, just getting out and in front. But it's been fun to watch him. He's one of those guys that when he steps in the box, he commands not only the strike zone, but just it feels like he's in the driver's seat and he's not going to get pushed around by whatever sort of arms on the mound.
I love that. All right, man. Last hitter I want to specifically talk about here is a guy was one of my favorites to follow in the organization last year. That's Leonel Espinoza, because I thought he was really impressive throughout the season in Myrtle Beach last year. He was assigned to Myrtle Beach out the gate this year, which I really thought he'd start as the starting center fielder in South Bend to start off this year. So the fact that he went back to Myrtle Beach probably wasn't ideal for him mentally. Right. I'm sure that he expected and he wanted to be assigned up to high A to start off the year. And so I can't imagine that was an easy task to be sent back to Myrtle Beach. Got out to a rougher start to start the year, but has been really, and talk about a guy who's been one of the better hitters in the lineup over the past couple of weeks or so. Leonel Espinoza has been that, batting 287 this year. He's got a 759 OPS, which is good. It's 11% better than league average. We know hitting is not easy in that Carolina league. So a 759 OPS is 11% better than league average. But I thought he's looked pretty strong this season. Man in center field mostly, but also playing a little bit of corners. What have you liked from Leo so far this year?
It's been consistent. He had an 11-game hitting streak earlier in the year. Got off to a quick kind of start in terms of, picking up a hit, finding a way to get on base. And then it really ramped up in the hit department. That brought the average up for him. But defensively, he's looked really good too. Obviously, primarily a center fielder, but with Alexey Lumpuy, who's extremely quick, defensive-minded player, they've flipped back and forth. So we've seen Leo in all three outfield spots. He was in right field for the majority of this past week, and he made a couple of grabs against the wall. He picked up an outfield assist. He just finds ways to make positive impacts, wherever it is, whether it's on the base paths, whether it's defensively. And we talk about the consistency, not only, in the hitting department, playing defense. He's been in the lineup every single day. He was finally getting an off day during this past week, and basically had to enter the game due to an injury, or it wasn't really an injury, but a scare, a hit by pitch. And so got to talk to him about that sort of thing. And he said he just loves playing, just wants to be in the lineup every day. So he enjoys, being the everyday guy. And, the Cubs do a great job organizationally with that kind of research and development when it comes to player health. They're kind of out in front of the pack, leading that charge with, monitoring players and letting the data suggest when they need an off day. And Leo's one of those guys that it's like, he can tolerate it. So he's going to be out there every day.
I love it. Yeah, he's got 93 plate appearances this year, which is the most on the Myrtle Beach Pelicans roster. There's a few other guys, Alexey Lumpuy, Cole Mathis, Angel Cepeda have logged 80-plus plate appearances. But there's a whole bunch of dudes that are like in the 60s and 50s. And Leonel Espinoza is just leading the charge there. I'd imagine that as long as he keeps hitting, that a spot will open up for him in South Bend by the midway point of the season, and we see him up there. And that'll be super exciting because I think that he is another guy, along with Owen Ayers, is a guy that fans will really latch onto as the season wears on. And I think they did a little bit last season too. So that's super, super fun. So any other position players, any other hitters that you wanted to call out?
I think we touched on a lot of them. It's been a little bit of a slow start for Lumpuy, but you're starting to see it. A guy with crazy amounts of speed. He's a plus base runner. He's a plus defender. It's been a lot of a high strikeout percentage for him, but when he hits the ball, it's loud, it's backspin, especially to the pull side as a left-handed hitter, and it leads to a lot of triples. He picked up a triple this past week. Another guy that's really come on strong is Cameron Sisneros. And talking with Roberto Vaz, the hitting coach, Cameron was a guy that was drafted to hit, and he's looked very comfortable at first base defensively, makes the plays that he should. This week, he had a couple of flashes of the leather that was like, okay, this guy can stick here at the one bag. He's not solely a hitter. But for Cisneros, it was a really slow start. And he used everything last week as a mental reset. And he's put together a little hitting streak. He's backswinging the ball. It's been impressive to watch him go the other way. One of these left-handed bats that is spraying the ball to the left center field gap. And definitely a bat to watch.
I mean, you'll love a rowdy boy, and Cameron Cisneros, he's a big guy in the box. He's only striking out 14% of his plate appearances. You look at Cameron Cisneros, and there's no way you look at him and say, "Oh, he's only striking out 14% of the time." Like he's a guy that looks like he's going to strike out 30% of the time, and also hit some absolute moonshots from the box. And tapping into that pull side power is going to be important for Cisneros, because like even if he is a good defensive first baseman, like what's going to allow him to climb up through the system is him hit some tanks, right? And so love the fact that he can use the opposite field. That's terrific. But something to keep an eye on is like tapping into that pull side power, which we know is stuff. We just talked about how tough it is in Myrtle Beach for a left-handed hitter like Cisneros to hit the ball out to right field. That's going to be tough on him. So if he can kind of hone in on this ability to use the opposite field this year in Myrtle, and then he gets up to South Bend or up to Knoxville in the next couple of years, like that's where he can start to tap into that pull side power and like really start to show off a little bit. So that's that's definitely a guy to watch this season, because we just love rooting for a guy that looks like Cam Cisneros. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome. And another one of those guys mentioned slow start, but has figured it out. He's kind of been the guy sticking at first base. He's been, I don't even know what the number is anymore, but it's 10 plus straight starts at first base because he was in there, and then Hallback went down with the injury, and now he's on his way back. So Cisneros has been in there every day, and he has found the swing. It's going to be really fun to watch him start turning on the baseball. He said that kind of at the beginning of the year, it was guiding the swing too much, just trying to do too much. And he said now the mentality is let it eat. And oddly enough, the let it eat factor has produced even less swing and miss. So that's always a positive when a guy is letting it go and the bat to ball skills are there.
All right, brother. Anything else you got here? I know that we got a fun season ahead of us in Myrtle Beach. Still plenty of players to keep an eye on and watch progress throughout the season. You guys have all sorts of fun things going on in the broadcast, going on at the ballpark for fans looking to go to the ballpark. Any more instances where you're going to be putting on a tiara at the ballpark?
I don't know. That might be the only tiara about, but
I was going to say, I think the Pelicans tweet out the picture of you rocking the tiara at Princess Night.
And, I got asked to come back live. I think it was top of the fourth inning or something. Come back with a tiara on, and then whatever. That works for me. I made some of the players do it for a social thing, so I felt it was only right when it was turned around on me. If I was to ask them to do it, I also had to do it. So
I love it. All right, man. Where can we find you on social media? Where can we watch you? Where can we listen? All that good stuff.
Yeah, my social channels, just my name, Luke Moehle, on Twitter. Try to, I guess now X. That it will always in my mind to be Twitter. Yeah. But yeah, like to post a few things. Trying to churn out some more numbers as we continue and progress through the season. Start putting a little bit more content out in terms of guys' numbers and little stories and nuggets like that. And then also the Pelicans, a lot of that stuff. The Pelicans do a good job across all social medias, whether it's recaps of games on YouTube or just, true content across all social media platforms. So if you're looking for some highlights, they're going to be all over on X, Instagram, Threads, really anywhere you consume media. You can follow the Pelicans channels for that sort of thing.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough too how good of a job the Pelicans organization does at promoting the product on the field. I think the Cubs organization does a pretty damn good job of doing that across the board. But the Pelicans are extraordinary at doing that, and on social media and posting the videos and all sorts of content is just absolutely terrific. And shout out to the whole team over there. But yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll get you on throughout the season every once in a while, because this is terrific.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in, whether it's on any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Or if you listen and watch on the Cubs on Deck YouTube channel, you can send us a like below, send us a comment, let us know what you think about the Pelicans roster and what players you like specifically here. Really appreciate you guys all subscribing. We're getting awfully close to 1,000 subscribers over on the YouTube page. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And next week is our 100th episode of this show. And so if you have any recommendations or suggestions about anything special that you'd like us to do on this podcast for our 100th episode, drop a note my way. Give me a shout on Twitter at Out of the Vines. You can find me on Blue Sky at Out of the Vines. Or just in the YouTube chat too. Just let us know what you'd like to see. We'll try to do something special. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but we're open to suggestions. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be back in your ears in one short week.